Okay, I think we have the recorders going, and Cadet McGee, you may start the class.
Flight, Hudson, Hut! Element 1, report.
All present and accounted for, sir.
Element 2, report.
All present and accounted for, sir.
Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seats.
Okay, thank you very much, Cadet McGee. All right, guys, welcome to week 5 of Military Studies 100. We have a leadership, this is after Labor Day, right? So we actually have a leadership lab a week from yesterday. We did not have one for week 5, but week 6 we're going to have a leadership lab 6. It's going to be unusual that we actually have a test via CPS, the Classroom Performance System. So we'll be testing ourselves on Leadership Education 1, Chapter 4, Lesson 1 and 2. This is the fitness leadership education lesson that we finished about a couple weeks ago, actually. We'll probably have a review on it this coming Thursday. Today, we're going to be going over AS1, Chapter 6, and then it's Lesson 1 today, which is the Modern Air Force, talking about the Air Force beginnings through the Korean War. This lesson today is supposed to augment last week's Vietnam experience with Lieutenant Colonel Dick Jonas, so that we're working towards having a test in 2 weeks on Chapter 6, Lessons 1 and 2. Okay, everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Sounds good? All right. What we'll be doing now is open up your books there to Chapter 6. I think it's, what page is it? 204? What page is it, guys?
206. 205, sir.
Okay. I tell you what, before we do that, why don't I go through and make sure everybody is up on Moodle. The way I'm presenting this course, here, I'll tell you what I'll do here is show it to the people off the screen. Okay, Moodle. Here is our Moodle website. For the first 4 weeks of this class, I was trying to teach you guys how to take an online course, meaning how do you submit multiple choice or how do you fill in the blanks and just respond to it. So the first 4 weeks we went through, and I actually gave you very minimal assignments. Simply, what is the message? Respond back to it. Actually give another response. Very simple things that really don't have that much to do with the assignments other than exercising your online ability. At this point, I sure do expect everybody here knows how to do online, or just like Cadet Kramer, you're going to get in touch with me and we're going to figure it out. Okay? And with that, week 5, which starts tomorrow, we're actually going to be finished with our LE lessons. Like I have here, lesson 1, LE1, Chapter 4, Lesson 1 and 2. The test is going to be on the vocabulary. We'll be doing it on the CPS system. But today, we're going to actually be going and finishing up our AS studying, so that for the actual week 5, we'll be doing specific online standard objectives. I'll give you reading assignments, and then of course you'll have to turn in stuff online. Okay, so the amount of assignments will get much more rigorous this week and be more standard, because I'm assuming I don't have to teach you how to do online courses. Okay, everybody clear about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. If you're not online hybrid students, if you guys are not able to watch all these videos, if you're not able to submit your answers, please tell me, because the game is sort of starting the week 5 when I give you more rigorous assignments. When are the assignments due, Cadet Haslam? For the online portion.
Every Tuesday.
Tuesday about what time?
What was it?
3 o'clock in the morning?
11:30 at night.
Yes, exactly. It's 11:30 at night. That's what we're looking for. And that's when everything will be due. So that's when the new week starts. So I will open up this next week 5, basically this afternoon probably before I go home, but before Wednesday, week 5 will be opened up. Okay. You can see that week 5, I actually have a assignment here about Lance Saijan, who is a Air Force Academy graduate, and actually talks about him being the only Air Force Academy graduate to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. It was due to his way he conducted himself as a prisoner of war, and it's a very good warrior film. So I want you to make sure you watch that, since this is the quarter where we're watching famous Air Force members. All righty. So back to chapter 6, lesson 1. Why don't we go through this? Air Force Beginnings through the beginning of the Korean War. We're going to be talking about how the Air Force became an Air Force. Here's a question for you, Cadet McGee. How come I'm not talking about the Air Force in World War I?
Because we're talking about the modern Air Force.
When did the Air Force begin?
World War II.
World War II. So why am I not talking about the Air Force in World War I?
Because it wasn't.
It wasn't here. Exactly. And so that's exactly right. The Air Force in World War I did exist. We'll cover all that basically when we talk about the Army, which is the third quarter. The Vietnam War and other operations and global interventions. 1947. We'll go over how the Air Force ended up becoming an Air Force after World War II. We'll talk about the Cold War, what exactly that meant. That honestly was most of my career in the Air Force, was the Cold War. And we'll talk about the Air Force role in the Berlin airlift in the Korean War. In World War II, and this is now starting there on page 206 and 207. They were talking about how vital the air power was to the Allies' victory in World War II, and how critical it was for them to have air power in order to win the war. And so even though we were underneath, what branch of service were we underneath during World War II, Cadet Johnson?
Army, sir?
Army, yeah. So my dad, who fought in World War II, he was actually in the Army Air Corps. There was no one in the Air Force in World War II. So in World War II, it was the Army Air Corps, and we were such a significant part of them winning the war. Like, for instance, when they say, oh, the Air Force released atom bombs and nuked Japan. Did we really do that? No, the Army Air Corps actually did that. Okay. So then after the World War II, most people were convinced that it was time for the Air Force to gain independence from the Army. How about, is there any kind of discussion nowadays about forming another branch of the service?
Navy SEALs, sir.
Navy SEALs? Navy SEALs are under the Navy. What other part of the environment now are we using more and more than we never thought before? In 1910, we just went over the Wright brothers, 1904, did we ever think there'd be a completely separate Air Force from the Army? No, the Army's been around for 150 years in 1910, right? Yes, so it's the Revolutionary War. So now, here we are in the year 2012. What part of our new world and environment that we're using that we cannot imagine being part of our world? Talk to me. Yes?
Technology, sir.
Technology. So what part of the world are we actually looking at in technology? Cadet Russell. Go to be excused, okay? So how can people attack us with technology? How can people attack us with technology?
If you use like mechanical airplanes, sir?
Mechanical airplanes, but what about through the internet? What's that called? What kind of warfare is that called? Cyber warfare. Why can't we have a cyber forces? We have an air force that we never imagined, because we always walked on the ground, and now we have air forces, but all of a sudden cyber warfare is coming on. Why don't we have cyber forces? I don't know why.
It's important. It's an important part of the military.
It is, but is there anything to say that your kids won't be serving in the cyber forces of America? I'm just saying, right now, it sounds kind of weird to us, but this is exactly how it sounded to the Army guys that were thinking, they're not going to take our planes away from the Army and make it an Air Force. Doesn't make any sense. Well, guess what? They may take all our computer experts away from the Air Force and make it part of the cyber forces in the future. You don't know. You know. What about...
The world's an ever-changing place.
well, the world is, but also our defenses and how we're going to win or defend ourselves from attack. What about space? We're the Air Force. Are we truly the Space Force?
No, sir.
Well,
What does the mission Air Force talk about? Where is our battlefield? What's the difference between air and space?
Atmosphere.
Well, actually, our term is in our mission of the Air Force, they talk about the air and space, aerospace forces. Okay, so we have sort of tried to already claim the Space Force part in the Air Force. Okay, we don't want a separate whole part of the military called the Space Forces. We don't want that at all. So this is kind of crazy to us to think that someday we may actually have a cyber force. But you know what? It's just no more crazier than them creating an Air Force in those days. National Security Act of 1947. Who's president? Who made this happen?
Harry Truman.
Old Harry Truman. What's he famous for? Cadet Overton. What was Harry Truman famous for? What did he do?
drop the atomic bomb, Jim.
Ding, 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 ding. Did Franklin Roosevelt drop the atomic bomb? No. Did the Air Force drop the atomic bomb?
Only
No.
by presidential.
So President Roosevelt, yes, he started the initiative to create the atomic bomb, but he didn't drop it.
Signed it off to drop it.
He died. Is what he did. He died of a sudden death. But this gentleman right here, Harry Truman, was the one who truly took the responsibility and dropped the nuclear bombs at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So after the war, though, he was also the one that realized the Air Force should be a separate force. Okay, and it even says there in your page 208 in your books how the atomic bomb changed the warfare, and the fact that the Air Force should be separate and there should be one force in charge of the atomic warfare, and that's what it was. This act of 1947 established the Department of Defense. It established one person in charge of it, a civilian in charge of the Department of Defense, which is called the Secretary of Defense. It also created the CIA and the National Security Agency, which is right now. So this National Security Act of 1947 was incredibly important for America and organized the Department of Defense and other agencies. Here's a question. When they say Department of the Navy, where's the Marines? Do they have a Department of the Marines? They have a Department of the National Guard? They have a Department of Reserve? Where is that? What happens to the Air National Guard, which has the Air and Army National Guard? I think they have, 400,000 people in it? 400,000 people in the Army and Air National Guard? Where are they represented? At Navarro, where are they represented? If you're in the Army National Guard, we have some of our former cadets, actually, Dylan Younger, in the Army National Guard. Who does he work for? Navy?
The Army, sir?
He works for the Army, yes, technically. He works for the governor. The Guard is directly under the governors at all time. And so Governor Brewer, Jan Brewer, technically, she's in charge of an Army and an Air Force because she's in charge of the Guard for her state. And then once they do federal missions, they're then chopped to the Army or the Air Force and in charge of it. They're not a separate department underneath the Department of Defense. First Chief of Staff of the Air Force. Gee, this will be on your test. Who's the first Chief of Staff of the Air Force? Go ahead, Johnson.
Jen Carl.
Excuse me?
Jen Carl Spass.
Who's Jen? Is that his first name?
Oh, General.
Gotcha. Okay, we're learning. Yeah, that's a general, meaning he's a 4-star general. And he was the Air Force first Chief of Staff. So he was in the Army. He worked for probably 30 years in the Army. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he became the first Chief of Staff of the Air Force from 1947 to 1948. Okay. Yes, sir.
I do have one question. How many 5-star generals have there been, sir?
I do not know.
3.
I don't know. Ask when we get to the Army. They're all in the Army, okay? Doesn't have much to do with our lesson today. But that's a good question. Okay, so here are the implications of a separate Air Force. Okay? These are things that you should know. The big picture. Why we would have a separate Air Force. The fact that the atomic bomb would belong to the Air Force. They didn't belong to the Army anymore. The Army couldn't take a helicopter or a fixed-wing plane, go out and drop an atomic bomb. The concept was the atom bomb was going to protect the Air Force from everything. Not only the Air Force, but the United States from all the bad guys. And that we would be able to be responsible for the atomic bomb and be able to use that to defend America from all the bad guys. Did this happen, Cadet Overton? Did the atom bomb end all wars? No, not at all. Because we thought at the time it was so spectacular it ended the most important war, World War II. But this is what most Americans expected. They most expected a long period of peace after World War II. But then just like now, when we're actually talking about cyber warfare, or we're talking about terrorism as a different war, after World War II, there was another different type of war. Instead of having a world war, we'd have wars in smaller theaters, smaller areas of the world. And it would involve a huge buildup of arms that, oh, by the way, we never used. And so this Cold War was our war against Soviet Union, because after World War II, there were two main winners, if you will, two main allies after World War II that were not completely destroyed, like Germany. And so the Soviet Union and the American countries were basically the two large controlling bipolar rulers of the world. And we had this huge war, this Cold War. It never came to any atom bombs being dropped. And they even have dates on it now. I never thought about the dates, but from 48, meaning after the Air Force was formed, to 1989, of course, when President Reagan challenged Russia to break down their walls. But this Cold War was a very long war. Hey, I got a question for you. Did anybody ever die in the Cold War? Bean?
I don't think so, sir.
Answer is yes, they did. But when it happened, it was very classified. And just now, stuff was being released where we were actually flying classified missions over Russia and over the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc. And sometimes they get shot down. Sometimes the engine would turn off and they get killed. So yes, they actually had to have a few people that did die during the Cold War, but it was very classified.
Wasn't there a mission called the U2 incident, sir? Isn't that what it was called? Or was that...
Well, the U2, yeah, that was Gary Powell over Cuba. And we'll cover that. Actually, that's later on in the same chapter. But he basically was flying at high altitude and got shot down. He didn't die. He was okay.
He was kept a prisoner of war.
Yeah, prisoner of war. So the Cold War was kind of secret and ongoing. It wasn't overt. And again, this is basically what I've spent my time as a fighter pilot, except the end part, when we actually did go to war. But you're always training. And as a fighter pilot, I flew F-4s and the F-15Es, and I was trained to carry nuclear bombs in both those planes. And our targets were over in Europe. and it was very classified at the time, but we would actually take off from America, fly over Europe, and probably land, get refueled, spend a day or two, but then our mission was, no kidding, go drop nuclear bombs in Europe. And it was kind of a weird time to be, but you trained and trained and trained, you prayed that you would never have to use this. It's kind of weird. The Soviet Unions were you were invading the countries around them, and they were putting communist governments in the Eastern Bloc countries. I remember very specifically as a high school student when Czechoslovakia was invaded by the Soviet Union. Just all of a sudden on the radio they came up. Imagine all of a sudden on the radio you have come up and said, Venezuela is being invaded by Colombia. And the next day, Venezuela has ceased to exist, gone away. And Colombia has doubled in size. I mean, that's kind of crazy. That's what happened during these times. Or let's see, Guatemala, Panama are being invaded by Mexico. There's also, they take the Mexican senator and put him in charge of Guatemala. They just take over the whole country. And that's exactly what Russia did. We kind of let them do it because we had no other ways to keep them from, and they were having these communist states that were protecting them around the Soviet Union. What was the Marshall Plan, Cadet McGee?
It was a strategy for rebuilding the countries of Europe and getting rid of communism.
The Marshall Plan. We had pretty much wiped out Europe, right? I mean, we had firebombed it, we had invaded it, we marched across it. Millions of people had died. And to me, honestly, that's one of the great things about America is we tend to build up what we destroy. And so the Marshall Plan completely rebuilt rebuilt Germany and parts of Europe. And what is the strongest economy in Europe right this second in 2012? Who's the Bank of Europe? Who's the strongest country in Europe? Germany. We wiped it out, okay? But because we built it back with the Marshall Plan, they are doing quite well. What about Japan, who we nuked? How are they doing nowadays?
Amazing.
They're doing great. I mean, it's amazing, you know? I mean, we wiped them out. We nuked them, but guess what? We rebuilt them, and they're doing quite well, quite well. Even now, today, I read some just the other day in the Wall Street Journal that said Iraq has never had as much education going on and has never had as much electricity as after we had a war there and we rebuilt them. So we're pretty good about that. That's kind of the things that the world doesn't get America credit for. Okay, the atom bomb. So we were scared about Russia dropping bombs on us. And to defend ourselves against Russia in this Cold War, we had what was called a triad approach to defend ourselves. And it was land, sea, and air. And this all happened, I mean, I got into the military, into the Air Force in 1983, so it was the height of the Cold War. And there were always Air Force bombers ready to go over the North Pole and bomb Russia. Always. And they were even sometimes, depending on alert, sometimes you'd have bombers there 24 hours a day. So you guys go up and fly for 12 hours. You guys go fly for 12 hours. Somebody was always up, ready to go and drop these nuclear bombs in Russia. It was a fact. Sea base, you had the Navy, owns the sea base, of course, and they had nuclear power submarines all around the world. And, of course, it was a big invention. Eventually, these nuclear power subs had to go closer to Russia to shoot the intercontinental ballistic missiles. But about, I don't know the date, I guess, middle of the 80s, late 80s, they actually invented the missiles so that the nuclear power submarines could sit in San Diego Harbor and shoot a nuclear missile that would wipe out Russia. Or sit in Jacksonville or Charleston or Norfolk. So we didn't even have to be out in the ocean. We could be sitting in the docks and actually attack Russia. That was pretty incredible. And then, of course, the land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles are Air Force controlled, and they were all in different dispersed location. Where is a famous intercontinental ballistic missile field that has a museum nowadays near us? Where's that? Some of you guys have been there. Where's the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Museum near us?
I don't remember where it is, or I know what it's called, though.
What's it called?
Titan Missile Museum.
Titan Missile Museum. Down in Tucson, right? 200 miles away. Guess what? If we had a nuclear war, where do you think Russia would be targeting?
Nothing missing.
Tucson, right? Tucson would have been wiped off the face of the earth. If we had an all-out nuclear war, Russia's going to target our missiles just like we'd be targeting theirs. And so Tucson would have gone. Okay? That would not have been good. So I'm just saying, of course, this is in the 80s, in the 70s, and 60s. Tucson was rather unpopulated and rather spread out. Yes, Cadet Kramer.
If someone today, not saying they are, but if someone today were to drop a nuclear bomb on Tucson, would it reach Prescott? 200
Depends how big it is. It depends on the winds. And generally, I would say no, because the winds are basically west to east. They'd probably go across the eastern part of Mexico, eastern part of Arizona. But no, right now, where would a terrorist like to blow up and wipe out parts of
Washington.
Yes, Phoenix. What is really destructive that's just west of Phoenix that if it blew up it would mess up a lot of people?
California.
Where is the California? Let's blow up California. No, what is the largest nuclear power plant in America? Where is it? Palo Verde. Everybody heard of that? It's about an hour to the west of Phoenix. And if it were to blow up the largest nuclear plant in America, where do you think the winds would blow?
Us.
Right over us or right downtown Phoenix with 5 million people. That would be a bummer. Okay?
Cancer.
Or die immediately.
Yeah.
So you guys worry about terrorists, and when I was a kid, we worried about this. We worried about being nuked. I have told some of you guys before that again, nowadays we have lockdown drills. We're worried about bad guys coming and shooting up our schools. But as a kid, we didn't have stop, drop, and roll. We had nuclear bomb procedures where all of a sudden they come on and say, take cover, and we get under your little desk, and that's supposed to protect you from a nuclear bomb.
We have a nuclear bomb 40 miles out. Get under your desk, please.
And every kid in the school would do it. And I was right under there. And of course, you do it as a little third grader. You go, man, this is cool. I'm going to live. And then you're going as a teenager. You're looking at you, man, we just kiss ourselves goodbye. There's no way. We're going to be wiped out. I kid you not. That was a very serious thing. We probably had, 3 or 4 tests a year where we have, everybody take cover, inbound, you got 3 minutes. Oh, let's jump in our desk, and it'll protect us from a 50 megaton nuclear bomb. So
Everybody under the desk is still all right. Yay! Bubble of protection, untouched.
I'm serious. So now you guys, each generation has their different threats. Okay, what is NATO? Tell me what NATO is, Cadet Haslam. What's NATO?
The organization formed by the United States and European nations after World War II.
There you go, page 210, 211. Basically, defend ourselves against communist aggression. We first formed this in 1949, and of course then Russia responded and formed their similar organization called the Warsaw Pact. So let's see, the Cold War is over. Do we still have NATO right now?
Yes, sir.
We do have NATO right now. And it's actually kind of controversial. Because guess what? If we're supposed to defend ourselves from communist aggression, and Russia isn't looking to expand, okay, we're not.
What's the use of having it?
What's the use of having it? Guess who puts in the most money for NATO every year? America. America supports NATO, started it, and we absolutely put in a lot of money on it. So there's a lot of controversy. Okay, SAC. You probably need to know what SAC stands for. SAC. What does SAC stand for? Someone? Yes, sir.
It stands for
Yes.
Strategic Air Command?
Yay! Strategic Air Command. So strategic meaning long range. Air Command, they were in charge of the bombs, the nuclear bombs. And they were organized, like I said, the KC-135s were the tankers, the B-52s were the bombers. And you literally went straight line in the Great Circle route from wherever you were stationed. Many of them were on the northern part of America, and they could go straight over the poles and attack targets in Russia. A lot of them would never come back. The idea is you would attack your target in Russia and keep going south, maybe land in the Middle East, which were our friends back then, or Africa. And it was pretty incredible to make this happen. They ended up having arms race, building better bombers and better targets. Let's see. I don't know if I can do this. Let me show you what I actually enjoy. Let's see if I can push this over all the way. Oh. Here we go. This is the way the actual Cold War went. Okay? So we have the United States over here, and we have Soviet Union over here. So we decide to shoot somebody. Can I help you guys? What's up? Can I help you?
Just talk about a little of the planes in the book, sir.
Okay. Well, what's the question? Can I help you?
We were looking for the name of the United States Air Force AWACS reconnaissance aircraft. Third one.
AWACS?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's an airborne command and control. They literally would have a general sitting up there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to be in charge of the attack on Soviet Union. It's the one that has a huge radar dome on the top.
We were looking for the name of it, like what kind of aircraft it was. Is that the name?
It's a great question. It's an AWACS.
I'm
I'm a fighter pilot. I think it's a target. It can be shot down.
Yeah, I know the name of it.
Huh?
I know the name.
What is it?
The E3 Sentry.
E3, but what type of plane? Was a plane actually E3 or was it a 707 converter? Or
Yeah, it was a converted 707.
Yeah, okay. There's your answer. E3, 707 converter. Okay, guys, here we are in Soviet Union, Russia, and we have a missile, intercontinental ballistic missile. And it comes zinging up here, and it has a huge warhead. And let's say the first warheads were 50 megatons. And it would come down and they would actually wipe out Russia. That's a bad thing, huh? And so then what would Russia do? They'd say, you know what? If you're going to send 1 megaton to me, guess what? I'm going to send 3. How about that? 3. So then Russia would plan to send 1, 2, and 3. Coming over here and wiping out New York and Washington and LA. Okay? And then then America said, well, you know what? That stinks. And then we're not going to let just them send 3 nuclear bombs over us. What do? We're going to send 5. No, but we're sneaky, okay? We're sneaky. And we're going to send, this is a cartoon, but this is really what happened, okay? And so America said, you know what? We're just going to continue to send the 1 over here, and we'll just send 2 over here. And Russia's going, oh, you dumb Americans, what are you doing? Of course, inside of the missiles, very high secret, were 10 warheads. Okay. So instead of Russia would go, oh, you poor Americans, you're only sending 2 over. But they were called MIRVs, M-I-R-V, multiply independent reentry vehicles. So it would go up into space, and they would open up in a clamshell, and 10 of them would come, and they could wipe out 20 Russian cities. And that took a long time for Russia to figure out that we had lied to them. We didn't lie to them. But the fact that we were playing the game. So then, what would Russia do? And they'd say, oh, you little Americans, you're only sending out 550 megaton. I will send out 150 megaton. Okay, and we will send out 15 MERS. I mean, and so this is the game of the Cold War where we kind of kept one-upping each other. And why did we never shoot at each other with nuclear bombs?
Because we were too afraid of what they would do next.
It's called mutually assured destruction. It's called MAD. Okay? So when I was a kid, I always knew, I felt that Russia would never shoot at us because we knew that we would wipe them out. And then even if they had, ability to shoot down 50 nuclear bombs, guess what? 500 more were coming your way. Okay? And this is how it worked out when you had one bad guy and one of us, two people who were definitely shooting at each other, it would work out all right. Okay, Kramer?
If we wiped them out, then how would they send over their atomic bombs?
Could I explain?
No, I'm saying it's like 17 minutes. Like when you shoot something from here, it takes 17 minutes, 13 minutes, and it's not much. And as soon as we shot, we knew that they would respond.
Oh.
And so the stuff you see on TV where they say, "Hey, sir, we got 8 minutes for them to hit," that's real. I mean, so you can't make any decisions. So if we have documented proof that they have shot 100 nuclear missiles at us, boom, we're shooting, gone. And we tell them that, so they know they're not going to shoot at us.
So is that button that you always see on TV shows that if you push it, all the nuclear?
I wouldn't say it's quite a button. It's more like two keys.
Well,
On opposite sides. And then arms.
You ever been to the Titan Missile Museum? How they did it was they had two different people, two different keys, two
On opposite
different
sides of the room.
opposite sides of the room. And they had the guys who would turn the keys, and then one other person would hit the button or would fire the missile. So it was a team.
Like impossible to do it by accident.
Yeah.
and that is exactly the truth. And this is even when you're flying in a fighter plane and you have your backseat or your Wizzo, one person could not shoot a nuclear bomb or release a nuclear bomb. And so just like you said, the Titan Missile Museum, which maybe if you guys want to go, we'll go again. But it's pretty neat. You sit. It's farther away than one person can reach. So you have somebody across the room, and you say, 1, 2, 3, click, and you do two people will do two movements of a switch. And the same thing in the fighter. When I was flying with the F-15, you had your back seater, and he would have to flip a switch, and you in the front seater would engage a switch, and there would be a mutually assured release of the nuclear weapon. One rogue person could not do that. Could have some.
Maybe two.
Didn't we have defenses against enemy missiles?
Yes, but not when they shoot 500 of them. And not when they shoot 10 and they split up. And so what happened, guys, after all this happened, has anybody heard of the Star Wars program with Reagan?
Yep. I believe I heard something
Okay,
like that.
President Reagan, at the end of the Cold War, decided that we were going to come up with satellites that had lasers. And they're going to be sitting up here. And as soon as they saw the missiles coming out of the silos here, these lasers go whack, 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 whack. And they're going to knock down
As many as they possibly can.
nuclear bombs over Russia before they even get out of there.
Are they still do those?
That was his proposal. Did it happen? No. Did it scare Russia so much they started spending more money and put themselves into debt and the Cold War went away? Some people can argue that Ronald Reagan's proposal for Star Wars, the ultimate defense, bankrupted Russia and ended the Cold War. I'm not sure.
Could we really go to the Titan Missile Museum? That'd be really cool.
We'll see how the schedule goes. You've already been there before, but it is fun. Yes, sir.
Could you just fire like heat-seeking missiles from America at them?
These things go 15,000 miles an hour. They go very fast.
Is it like hitting a bullet?
Intercontinental ballistic missile. I mean, continent to continent.
It'd be like shooting a bullet with another bullet.
It is very hard doing this. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Didn't the Navy have anti-missile defenses in the AIM-54 Phoenix missile?
Yes, but that's one missile. Okay? That has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. We're talking about trying to fight a war and actually, win it with hundreds of missiles shooting at each other. It would never happen.
Anarchy.
Total anarchy. All righty. So, we have about 2 minutes. So I'm going to stop it right now. Tomorrow, which is Thursday, we'll be finishing up the roll in the Berlin airlift and finishing up this chapter. Cadet McGee, why don't you go ahead and dismiss the class here, and we will be ready to go.
Flight, attend, hut. Dismissed.
Go to the great day.